Hello everybody. This is a short video about the grand solar minimum. I've seen YouTubers like the Oppenheimer Project put out some scare videos and it just makes me sick. They really, it's based on such bad science. I haven't seen such speculation on bad science about a global event since people talking about the flat Earth theory. These grand solar minimum people have no idea what they're talking about. So let's go over some basic facts. The first time we can really tell what a sunspot is when we discovered sunspots is 1611, around the 1600s. So when you look at the historical data on sunspots, uh, you can see that there was a minimum from the time they invented or the time they observed sunspots uh, on forward. They have seen one cycle of a grand solar minimum. And all the speculation is that we're at another cycle. Now, if you look at these sunspot observations since the 1600 invention of the ability to see sunspots, you see the trend. And what the Oppenheimer Project and all these guys are trying to tell you is that there's an obvious trend that we're heading back into a grand solar minimum. Well, take a look for yourself. Does this line look like it's repetitive in any way, shape, or form? This is the actual observations. Think for yourself. Have an open mind. Does this look like we're headed towards a grand solar minimum of the same extent as a Maunder minimum? No, it doesn't. There's no pattern here that is observable. You see the blue patterns, those are just regular sun cycles. We go through it all the time, the 11-year sun cycles. And the idea that we're heading back into that long of a minimum when we only have one observed event like that is just insane. The second thing that's important to understand is that the grand solar minimum is about electromagnetic activity on the surface of the of the sun. The third thing to realize is that the sun is really, really, really far away. So even if the sun decreased its output of heat, radiation, which is not the same as electromagnetism, the solar storms, the electromagnetism on the surface of the sun are indicative of a change in the sun's output, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have a one-to-one correlation of a slowdown of solar activity on the surface and a slowdown of the radiation. They don't have really any correlation to each other that you can depend on. So with those in mind, these guys are just out of their heads when they're saying that we're going into another ice age. And you can see the Oppenheimer Project. He's grasping at straws. He'll take one snowstorm and say, "Look, look, look." Like for instance, I saw Diamond talk about the lake effect snow off of Lake Michigan as proof of the grand solar minimum coming. It's just ridiculous. Lake effect snow actually gets worse during global warming because there's more carbon in the air, there's more precipitation. So the last thing to really important about the grand solar minimum is that if it did happen again, just like the Maunder minimum, the effect of the Earth would only be a few tenths of a degrees Fahrenheit, which is nothing compared to what we're experiencing in the global change. This is Venture Sky, which is the Bible for scientists and weather. This is just a great interactive website. You see temperatures, clouds, radars. This is the total snow cover in the middle of the winter in the northern hemisphere. And as you can see here, America has almost no snow cover. Europe has no snow cover. Moscow has less than an inch of total snow cover. When's the last time you heard of that? The problem here is that you'll see the jet stream is being affected, and you'll see these troughs that are happening. It used to be that there'd be a direct line here. When I was young, much younger, there was a direct line all the way across the northern hemisphere of snow cover and temperature changes. Let me switch this over to temperature. This will show it much more clear. You see the trough here? This is a trough into the northernmost parts of our planet. And there's Iceland. Iceland in the middle of winter is having a nice 41-degree day. Can you imagine that? Then the trough comes down here, and here's where Diamond over at the Oppenheimer Project says, oh my gosh, we're having an event here because the lake effect snow is coming off of Lake Michigan here. But look, it's going to melt right away. But this is the lower end of the trough, so they sometimes call it a polar surge or whatever, comes down. This can stay in place for as long as a month, so Americans might think that they've had a colder winter than normal. They haven't. January was the hottest January on record. And over here in Europe, you'll see that they're basking in the sun, 43, 45 degrees. Hot summer day. Now let's go see the southern half of our planet, which Americans really don't talk about. Sydney's been in 100-degree temperatures all summer. All of Australia, 100-degree temperatures all summer. Unheard of. You know about the fires. You know about the rains. Now look at here at Sierra del Fuego. Nice warm weather right off the tip of the Antarctic coast. 52 degrees. Look at the motions of the air currents hitting the Antarctic continent. These are all going to have profound effects on our planet. This is what you should really be talking about. I know that American news makes you think that this is not real. I just don't have any idea why. I know that people like the Oppenheimer Project will tell you about the grand solar minimum simply because they want more hits on the YouTube site. Great for them, but it's just bad science, and it might end up hurting people in the long run. So stick to real science. Watch Venture Sky. You can open it up on a daily basis, and it'll reprogram your mind to the reality of our planet rather than listening to hearsay from the people like the Oppenheimer Project. This is our real planet. This is our real planet getting hotter. Time to deal with it and stop acting like children.